It's a weekend that could decide the fate of what these Iowa basketball teams face. Iowa on the women's side going to Ohio State. The Iowa men, a big upset opportunity against Maryland. We break it down today. Locked on Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch us on YouTube. Hit subscribe while you're there. Just takes you a moment and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com. Big weekend in hoops coming up. It begins on Friday night with the Iowa wrestling team getting a nice win against Minnesota. And for years and years, this was, of course, the rivalry, not just in the Big Ten, but in college wrestling when Jay Robinson departed the University of Iowa, built that Gopher program up. There were, of course, national championships, and there were some contentious duels in these matches. Unfortunately, that has not been the case anymore. For wrestling fans, this was a real fun rivalry. The border aspect to it. Remember going up to the Target Center years ago, watching a duel up there. And the Minnesota program has fallen on hard times. And it's going to be a rebuild in front of them, certainly. But Iowa gets it done 23-11, the final on Friday night. So today we're going to hit a little bit of everything. We got Iowa wrestling to get into, their final home duel of the week, or final Big Ten duel, of the weekend, also coming up against Northwestern. Talk about that and what they did against the Gophers. The basketball teams, we'll get into it. Iowa women, they get the 11 a.m. Central tip-off against Ohio State. Big Fox will be broadcasting against the Buckeyes. We're going to talk about that matchup. Iowa against Maryland on the men's side of things. And though it's highly unlikely that Iowa's going to go into Maryland and win the game, that's why they tip it up. We'll talk about that a little bit. Plus, Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com is going to stop by. Lots to get into with him. Plus, a little Iowa baseball as their series has started up. And their season has began as well as the Iowa baseball team opens up with a 3-game series against South Florida. So that's where we are, but let's open things up back where we started. Friday night against Minnesota. And you look through and go through the matches. Maybe the biggest one was Joey Cruz at 125. Look, Iowa was still going to be able to win this duel without getting 25. When he kind of went matchup by matchup, bonus points in there, I think you still felt good about this one. Iowa was a 5.5 point favorite in the duel on the sports books out there, including Circa, who does wrestling lines, and it was 5.5. So Iowa was favored still. For Cruz to get that one, he's had a couple of pretty decent victories here. It's going to be incredibly difficult. It's going to be a tough path, I should say, for him to make the NCAAs and the path he's going to have to go through at 25. But we continue to see some glimpses out of him at 25. It gives you, look, it's going to take work, probably going to take a couple of upsets, but that he can get there out of the Big Ten. 133, Drake Ayala. You look at the 9-5 final, it really was not indicative of the way this one went. Ayala had an opportunity late to get another takedown and maybe make this a major decision. Didn't play out there, but win against the 19th ranked kid. Pretty good there once again from Drake Ayala, and he just rounding into form as we go there. Cullen Shriver on the other side gets beat 14-10. Saw some good things. He came back and at least made it a match there at the end. Good to see at 141. At least little signs of life, if you will. 149, Parco does this thing, just a very workmanlike victory. Same thing with Teamer, 4-1. These were not overly exciting matches. They were just good wins. Caliendo on the other side, boy, what a turnaround he had. He's dominated the series against Andrew Sparks, but never in the fashion like he did. 21-5. These guys wrestled just a couple months ago, and it was not even close to that. Caliendo has been squeaking out victories, and this one, not the case. 21-5 over Andrew Sparks, who's ranked number 11. Kennedy with the win, and then we get into the upper weight classes. That is where a couple of victories came, including, of course, Gable Stevenson, what he did against Ben Keeter, 22-3, an eye-opener there. Buchanan, stud for Iowa at 97, another victory for him, and Gabe Arnold goes down. Gabe Arnold now 3 consecutive matches without a takedown. I need to see some more aggression. You wonder if he's at the right weight. If weight class wise of 74 would make more sense, but then Basher Kennedy's not going to bump down because he got Caliendo at 65. They are what they are for this season. And looking forward with what Ferrari's going to be, you just wonder because Gabe Arnold's not a tall guy. And though he is a very solidly built man, to say the least, you just wonder about going forward. What's the best weight class for him and with Ferrari and what they have and what they're going to have next season, what that's going to look like. But that's going to be a conversation for the offseason. We got some basketball to get into. Mention both of the matchups coming up on the weekend. So the Iowa men facing off against Maryland. Incredibly difficult task. They're going to be about a 12-point underdog in this one. Going into Rutgers and winning was one thing, and it was a great win. Look, as we talked about earlier in the week, you don't want to discredit what they did because it'd been so difficult. You saw the emotion that came out of it. And still, Maryland is a different animal than what we saw out of the Rutgers team. Rutgers is a 500 team. Rutgers is a team that has struggled throughout the course of this season. And though they're incredibly talented, talent alone does not win ball games. And you got two guys that are going to be probably top 5 picks, and then the rest of the squad kind of stinks. Now here comes Maryland, or Iowa goes to Maryland to be more accurate. They've won 6 out of 7, 8 of their last 10. Included in there is wins on the road at Illinois, at Indiana, at Nebraska. 3 tough places to win. Illinois, the most difficult of them. They won that one by 21. They beat Indiana by a point. And then they go to Nebraska this week, and Nebraska felt like they had righted the ship, and they won there. Their only loss came on the road, a 3-point loss to Ohio State that they had leads in there. This is a team playing incredibly well. Not only that, the way that they're constructed, the way that they're built, feels like it's going to be a tough matchup. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. We got some Iowa baseball to get into. Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com. He's going to join us as we roll through. It is a little bit of everything here on the Friday edition of Locked On Hawkeyes. Stay right there. We're back with more in a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by Factor. Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto, Plus Factor even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, and grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently used the Protein Plus meals. They were packed with flavor and kept me full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege. 50 off. Use the code LockedOnCollege 50 off. That's going to get you 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LockedOnCollege 50 off at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege 50 off. Once again, get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. It is factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege 50 off.
Kakert momentarily. A little announcement just came on the X, I guess about 20 minutes ago. Iowa State and Purdue announced a home and home.
Nice.
On the hardwood. They'll go to Mackey next year. The return at Hilton in 2026.
A real home and home?
A real home and home. How about that? Let's get Tom Kakert in here. He covers the Hawks, HawkeyeReport.com. Hello, Tom Kakert. How are you?
I love that. That's awesome.
Isn't that good?
That is awesome. And I'll say this, having been to quite a few, not all, but quite a few of the arenas in the conference, Mackey's my favorite basketball arena.
Is it really?
It is. It's the best basketball arena that I've been to. It's perfect for basketball. Just the way they put it together. I think some of this crowd support helps out to make it cool, but it's just, yeah, it feels intimate, but there's a lot of people there. So it's just, yeah, if anybody ever gets a chance, go to Mackey for a game. You'll love it.
And I think of Mackey back in the 80s when they had the sunken floor, and it was like you see still at the barn there, and they went through renovations. So you've been to buildings that have gone through renovations. Mackey,
Yes.
Assembly Hall, the Illinois Assembly Hall. You've seen a bunch of them. What can be done at Carver? What would you like to see? Now, we give a magic wand and spend $300 million would be one thing, but what needs to be done to improve the environment, and not just for men's basketball, but in general? It's a building showing its signs of age.
Yeah, it is. You know what I would do? I would put and I think what they're going to do, put some suites up on the top.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to lower I don't think it's good to have a basketball arena that's more than 10,000 these days. I just don't think so. So, find a way to, build some concourses in there, because, you got to be like a Himalayan tour guide to get up and down those stairs anymore. You like a Sherpa or something for Everest. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, that's the other thing. I would, frankly, I'd build a whole new arena.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say, you know what? Things served us really well for 40, 50 years. Let's start from scratch, and let's build a new state-of-the-art arena that's a basketball arena. A friend of mine always says, you look at what University of Houston did with their arena, because it was kind of outdated and everything, and they just redesigned it and made it just a much more intimate feel, and that's a really good home court advantage down in Houston now.
Let's talk about what we saw earlier in the week. The Hawks, a much needed road win. What did they do? How did they take that and use it in their favor against a really good Maryland team who's playing very good basketball right now? But Dix was unbelievable. Payton, Sandfort, obviously. Price is playing well. A whole lot of guys deserve accolades. Dembele, but a big win, and just the sigh of relief that must have overcome that locker room. Emotionally, it overcame their coach, and I can understand that as well. But how did they turn that one into another one and start putting them together?
You know what I thought that was a sign of experience versus inexperience. And, I start to wonder about are the two Rutgers studs just sort of like, you know what, 12 and 12 might not be worth us kind of doing a whole lot here.
Yeah.
So, and those Iowa guys, I'll give Fran credit because there's a lot of teams that, with all the injuries and everything, and then, Owen's out, and then Falwell's out, and you're going on a road trip to New Jersey on a weekday in January, you're like, or February, you're like, maybe not interested. And they have not packed it in. They have not given an ounce. They're still playing super hard. I mean, even the games during the week, they were really competitive with both those teams last week, and Purdue and Wisconsin, and just getting after it, and just the talent overwhelmed them at the end of the day. But Braden Smith and guys like that, they kind of overwhelmed them. But they were playing hard and they were competitive in those games. So it just tells you that they're still playing for their head coach. They're still playing for each other. Now we'll see if they get Falwell back. Fran's comments today were basically not sure. So that doesn't sound positive to me.
Yeah,
it sounds like he's not going to play. That's my guess.
Yeah, it'd be too bad. You know what else with McCaffery? To back up your point, I thought that he was emotional in part, anyways, because he appreciates the effort the kids are giving. He said it's not just in the game; it's in practice, and they're doing everything that they're asked. And I think that had part of what to do with his emotions earlier in the week,
and the sacrifices that they're making, because. Payton even admitted after the game he's probably going to have surgery after the season. That's going to impact his professional opportunities. And I think it's on his shoulder that he hurt actually in the NBA draft combine last year.
Wow.
You guys remember that? And I think that's the exact same thing that he's been dealing with. And Josh Dix is not healthy either. I mean, he went through that 3-game stretch where he scored 14 total points, and he's been playing through stuff that, but that kid, tough as nails. I mean, just one of the toughest kids you'll ever meet, and never says a word, never complains. He just goes out there and plays. And, those two guys are just, they're not going to back down, and they're going to keep going, and we'll see. Going to Maryland. Maryland's really good. And they've got the thing that Rutgers doesn't have, which is really good players in the post too, with Queen and with Julian Reese. I mean, they've got some size and skill that I think is going to give Iowa some problems. But their guard play is not super great. But I really like the Maryland team a lot.
So does Ken.
Yeah,
and he's investing in that Maryland team. So, Tom, I do want to ask you about the emotion. You've been around Fran a ton. He's not that guy.
Nope.
Is it surface level, what we talked about, big win? But he's had big wins. He's been surprised. He's had guys that have toughed it out and done those things. Or is it where the speculation goes? Fran knows something, knows that this is coming to an end, knows that he's already been let know what's going to happen at the end of the year. Does your mind wander to that place when you see a guy that is normally so stoic become that emotional?
It's hard not to, but I don't think there's been any discussion or anything with him about the future. Beth has been pretty steadfast in what she said, that she's going to wait till the end of the season, evaluate the body of work, and then sit down with Fran, talk about it. So I'm pretty confident there's been no like, hey, you might want to dust off your resume, Fran. Just if you want to coach some more. I don't get that sense at all. I just think I think he knows that his time as a coach is coming to an end too, though, probably, that he's on the back nine. He's way in the back nine. He's 65 years old. He's not going to have many of these things. And I do think a lot of it is just, he appreciates the way that these guys have just
I'm with you
going.
Yep.
And as a coach, you appreciate that, but he is not an emotional guy. I mean, he didn't even really, there's a couple times he got pretty emotional with Patrick and when he was going through some things, but he's just always been pretty buttoned up. So to see him kind of well up a little bit, boy, that's something that's, we see it all the time with Kirk. So we're sort of immune to it from that front, but Kirk cries at a sad movie, he's just,
I do it commercials.
Yes. Right. Yes, that's us old people.
That's right. Absolutely, Tom. No kidding.
We're old.
Hey, Trent and I were talking yesterday. Do you think there's a chance Iowa participates in that college basketball crown, that Vegas tournament that Condon and I are?
We're
kind of working behind the scenes here. Any chance that can they turn it down since it's the conferences that are asking you? I guess they could. Can't be forced, but what's the likelihood, Tom?
Yeah, I think the crown, the great event out at the
Mobile. Yep.
And
T-Mobile's got the finale, the championship. Yep. They automatically take the last two that don't get in the NCAA tournament from the Big Ten. So that's what I've been told, and then it's sort of like a selection process to fill out the field. So it's not guaranteed, but it's like from the bigger conferences. Right. Big East, Big 12, and Big 10. Yeah.
So they'd have to move up the ranks, I think, a bit.
Go Hawks, go.
There's three of us that would like for the Vegas in late March, right?
So we could make that one happen, no doubt about it, and hang out at the Circus Sportsbook and watch some games and make our way over and watch a little Iowa hoops. That would be a good week. All right, Tom, I got a football question for you. We talked yesterday a little bit about the guys that were invited by the Combine. Nick Jackson wasn't. And at first on the surface going through, that makes sense. I went back and looked at it.
That is weird that he's not there. Why?
Any idea why? Yeah, Productive has done it now in two different kind of schemes at Virginia. Talk about production, the all-time leading tackle leader. Is he too short? What is it with Nick Jackson?
Yeah, I think it's probably his size. Size, speed. If you're his size, you have to have better speed. And I think I would have invited him. I think he deserves to be there. He was the guy that I thought was the biggest miss of the list of Iowa players that could potentially be there. Him and Mason Richmond was the other guy that thought, multiple year starter at left tackle for Iowa. Usually you get invited to the NFL Combine, and he did not. So you wondered about that. But I couldn't figure out the Nick Jackson thing, but he didn't get invited to the Senior Bowl either. So that was weird. It's going to be interesting to see who does what at the combine for Iowa, because like Jamari Harris was at the East-West game and just sort of bailed out on that.
Really?
Like went to practice like one day and then he was like, I'm good. See you guys. Didn't even play in the game. So I wonder if some of those guys just aren't quite healthy yet. So so I wonder who's going to run. If you see like Jay Higgins just said, yeah, I'm going to let film speak for my work.
Yeah.
I think that might happen because he's got a lot of tread off those tires right now. Last couple of years and the amount of snaps that he played.
Tom, we'll get you out on this. Iowa baseball begins their season this weekend, taking on South Florida. I saw Obermueller, a big prospect, coming back. He was drafted a year ago, comes back to hopefully lead, and he's going to be the number one Friday night starter for them. Just an overview. Is this an NCAA tournament team? Is that a stretch for the squad? What do you think of Iowa baseball?
Yeah, last year at this time we were talking about maybe getting to Omaha, and it just sort of blew up and just never really materialized. They just couldn't throw strikes, and that's the big thing. I think this is more of a, Rick Heller's teams are maybe a lot like the Kirk Ferentz teams. Whenever you have the massive expectations, they always just fall short of meeting those. And when you don't expect a whole lot from them is when they rise up and have a special year. So we'll see. I know Rick likes this team. He's got a lot of different pieces that he's got to figure out how to put in place and see where that goes. So I like the team, but I want to see what they do.
Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. Tom, thank you. Appreciate it. And talk to you next Friday. Thank you, Tom Kakert.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yep. See about Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. All right.
Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into same-game parlays. I love using FanDuel's live feature betting the games because every moment of the game is more exciting. Whether I'm backing the Hawkeyes for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is super easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Trent Condon back with you one final time. Locked On Hawkeyes. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So it is a busy weekend. As we talked with Tom Kakert there, it continues into Monday. And the opportunity for Iowa to get what would be just an incredible victory as they face off against Ohio State. So Ohio State, the Buckeye squad, is good again this season. But as has been let known, I think on both sides, Ohio State doesn't like Iowa. They don't like the way that I know it's been kind of stuck in it the last couple of years. And this is going to be one that they're going to be ready to go. So according to the point spread, projected point spread over at Bart Torvik. So I'm sure a lot of you have heard me mention Ken Pomeroy. Bart Torvik is another one. These are analytically based sites, and there are projected point spreads that are very close to what you see when Vegas comes out with their point spread. So this is a good way to look at it, see exactly what it's going to be. They have Iowa, Bart Torvik does, favored, a 5.5 point underdog, 5.6 points to be exact. So they're going to be a dog going into this one. This Ohio State team, as they have been, they are led inside by Cody McMahon. Cody McMahon absolutely ate Iowa's team alive a year ago. I mean, she was so good in the post and the ability to get it at the top of the key and go, free throw line and go. They did nothing defensively. That was a game where I remember afterwards having the question and having the concern, as if memory serves, they blew a lead in that game. And it was McMahon that came roaring back. As if Iowa was going to be a Final Four team again. That kind of loss was just, I thought it was that concerning. Of course, I was dead wrong and happy to be. But I think a win here could, again, change the narrative of this squad. All right, they went out and beat two teams that they're similar then and did it on the road, beating Nebraska, beating Minnesota. And it jumps them up. After the 5-game losing streak, now the winning streak continues. Didn't play great against Rutgers Thursday night. That doesn't concern me. But watching this Ohio State team, they've lost 3 out of their last 4. They're not playing great basketball compared to where they were as they got off to another tremendous start this season as they open up the year with 16 straight wins, something like that. 3 out of 4 losses. They lost to UCLA. They lost to USC. Nothing to deride them for that. It was also lost to Penn State. That was their first of the year in there. This is another winnable game, though. And we've talked about that path for Iowa. Keep moving up the pecking order. Look, the best case scenario, obviously, is keep winning, and get up to as high as the number 4 seed. It's still a long ways to go. We're going to find out on Sunday, in fact, where Iowa, well, not where Iowa sits. Iowa's not going to be in the top 16. So they're doing the top 16 reveal. Noted on the men's side on Saturday, the women's side on Sunday. We're going to see, though, what they're looking at, metrically what they're going for, and if there is a path for Iowa to do it. It's going to take a lot more wins. Probably going to have to win this one. Obviously beat Wisconsin at the end, and maybe one more. Probably got to win 3 out of 4, and then win a couple of games in the Big Ten tournament. Again, this is a lot. We're asking a lot of this squad, but boy, the way they're playing, the way Lucy Olson's playing, you hate to knock it. On the other side for the Iowa men against Maryland, what's it going to take to pull this shocker? You're going to have a lights out game. Either Josh Dix or Payton Sandfort. Both of them have to play well. You know, the way they're structured now offensively, both of those guys are going to have to play well. But you just look the way that Maryland is. They're efficient on both sides of the basketball. They're going to play at a fast tempo, something that Iowa goes into. Can Iowa get enough stops? And Stanford's going to have to go like 8 of 11 from 3. You're going to have Harding play at an incredibly high level. And then maybe get one of the 2 big guys in foul trouble. So Derek Queen's a freshman. He's a stud. We remember Julian Reese. He's been around for a long time. He's going to be there. So those pieces, I love the point guard that they have. Gillespie is just, I love him. I love watching him play. He's fast. He's quick. He came from Belmont, and he's just playing at an incredibly high level. I'll tell you, this squad, I didn't think Kevin Willard was going to have a team like this year. They're good, and we'll see. Again, you pull an upset here, we're having a different conversation. I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, we're talking about threading the needle. It's going to be incredibly, incredibly tough, but there's a chance, and that's why they roll the ball out there, and maybe those good vibes continue from what we saw on the win against Rutgers. That'll do it for today. We will be back with you after the Iowa-Maryland game and Instant Reaction podcast. We'll have you covered after the Iowa-Ohio State women's side. It's going to be a busy couple of days here. Iowa wrestling finishing up. Iowa baseball opens up their their slate of the season against South Florida. We'll have a reaction to that one and a whole lot more. Your team every day. That's what we do here on the Locked On Network. Again, hit subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. 5-star reviews. Need more of those over on the podcast side. Really does help us, and we do appreciate it. Thanks for being with us. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.